And time now for Focus, which today comes from Sweden, a country that once flew the flag for open-door migrant policy. But the Scandinavian nation has now done a dramatic U-turn, introducing border controls and tighter legislation to build one of the most restrictive asylum policies in Europe. Our team of reporters have been to find out what caused such a turnaround and what it means for the latest arrival of refugees.
We are at the Malmö station in the south of Sweden, one of the country's main entry points. A large open door that slammed shut suddenly last November. Over the course of a few months, thousands of people entered the country every day along these rails. Syrian asylum seekers, Iraqis and Somalis sought refuge in this country long considered a haven for refugees. Now all passengers arriving from the mainland are controlled.
Where do you live?
Here. I'm from Boston.
Sweden has a tradition of always helping people in need, and we want to carry on with that tradition. But I think the politics also see a different Europe today than before. Countries do not want to take the responsibilities, and I think the politicians saw this and that it was too many to handle for Sweden alone.
Faced with the high influx of refugees late last year, the Swedish government put on the brakes. Since then, 100 officers check the daily arrivals into the country. The free movement of people within the European Union is suspended here, as well as the Swedish tradition of welcoming refugees. Only 9,000 migrants have arrived in Sweden since the beginning of the year, but the Swedish Migration Board has reached saturation point.
Last fall, we received over 100,000 asylum seekers, which means that it was a huge increase compared to previous years. The budget of the Swedish Migration Agency needs to be doubled, and there we still wait for a reply from the government.
But for now, processing each case is hard work. Outside the registration centre, we meet some Syrians who have been waiting several months to be granted asylum.
This person here, 7 months or 8 months, you don't have time for interview.
I don't have appointment for the interview, yeah. This big problem.
This country very slow for everything.
A fate shared by the majority of refugees who live far from city centres. The authorities have been facing a housing crisis for several years and improvised shelters in the countryside, such as here in ANGELHOLM. These asylum seekers are part of the last wave of refugees that arrived before the border closure. BASEL took the Balkan route with his 4-year-old son. His wife and other children are still in Syria.
I'm planning to get the rest of my family to reunite us. This is the first thing I want to do.
Several volunteers work with refugees here. LENA is one of them. She is struggling to accept the decisions made by the government.
I don't particularly like to close the borders like now they're thinking about closing for the families and relatives. It makes me a bit sad to think that you could be joined with your family.
In June, a tightening of the asylum law will allow authorities to send nearly 80,000 migrants back home. These deportations will affect many children, because Sweden is the country that accepted the most unaccompanied child refugees last year. Brothers Surab and Masoud, who we meet in Malmö, were among the 35,000 children who made the long journey to Sweden. They have been here since January.
I'm safe. I can go to school, get training. It's very good for me.
I want to stay here, make a career in Sweden, and give back what the country gave me.
But the new law means that their chances of staying in Sweden are slim, as is their hope for their families to be able to join them.
Depending on if you are from a direct war zone, then you will get 3 years temporary residence permit. The others will get 1 year. And that has an immediate impact on their possibilities to reunite with their families. So it's a complete mind shift in Sweden, and we feel that we are betraying all our values.
More and more Swedes believe that in order to save this model, the first step is to care for and educate those who have already arrived in the country. 8 out of 10 schools don't have enough teachers. Elizabeth teaches Swedish to refugees in this school in Malmö. She believes that Sweden had no other choice but to close its borders.
I can understand that our economical and the economical situation now. Last year it came so many people, so I can understand the reason of this decision to stop the refugees. But in my heart, I feel very sorry about it.
The government continues to build on their closed-door policy. Border controls, especially around the Öresund Bridge, were extended until May 8th. Once a symbol of free movement, the bridge that connects Sweden to the continent now represents the end of the most generous asylum tradition in Europe.